Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP.
We don't join RCEP, definitely, we will not be able to expand the exports. We will have a hard time convincing these people to come in and do foreign direct investment in our country. That's the long and short of it.
The country's economic managers welcome the ratification of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP.
Yung mga concern naman na ma-disadvantage yung some sectors natin na agrikultura, hindi totoo yun dahil doon sa mismo sa agreement na nagawa na yung mga agrikultura natin ay well protected.
Senator Risa Ontiveros was not convinced that the RCEP will not pose security and health risks to Filipinos.
The calculations for me are simple, Mr. President. Dapa na po ang ating agrikultura. Hindi pa tayo nakakaahon sa pandemya. This is not the time for RCEP.
Maglalakas loob tayo na sumabak dyan, talagang tagilid tayo. Hindi po competition ang mangyayari. It will be domination by the better prepared, the richer countries who support their farmers more. Maraming aalis na sa pagsasaka kasi malulugi ang marami dyan .
Who's afraid of RCEP? That's the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Well, local farmers are. They believe the world's largest free trade zone will pose unfair competition. But senators and the country's economic managers are trying to allay these fears. We will discuss the good, the bad, and everything in between about RCEP in this episode of the Chiefs. Good evening, ako po si Robbie Alampay. Kasama po natin online Ed Lingao ng One News and then Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief po ng Philippine Star. Chiefs, good evening.
Good evening.
Happy Wednesday.
Ami, anong balita?
Well, apart from the ratification nga of RCEP late last night, may bago na namang mga picture yung Coast Guard na pinadala kuha yesterday. 31 Chinese militia vessels near Ayungin Shoal. Kaya ganon. At saka, well, it's related siguro dun sa pagbisita dito ng Australian Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister. And Australia is discussing joint patrols as well with our Coast Guard. Diyan sa West Philippine Sea.
What about from where you sit, Ed? Anong binabantayan mo, Bok?
Well, inanap ko yung episode ng Jeopardy kasi si Magellan bilang nabanggit.
Oo nga.
Oo. Medyo mahirap yung tanong.
Nakuha nila.
Nakuha nila. Si Ferdinand Magellan.
No.
May late statement ang Malacanang about the sugar smuggling issue. It's above board daw. O hindi pa nakukuha yung detalye niya kung paano siyang naging above board. But anyway, cleared apparently with Malacanang.
Well, maybe papasok yan sa usapan natin maya-maya. We will in fact talk about RCEP with our first guest after a short break. The Chiefs will be right back. The Philippines will be joining the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP. That is the world's largest trade pact. What's in it for us? Let's bring into the discussion Fermin Adriano, former Agriculture Undersecretary. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening, sir.
Also, Robbie, Ami, and Ed. Gandang gabi sa inyo lahat.
Gandang gabi
Sa inyong nanonood.
Sir, we've been talking about this for a long time already. But now that we're here, let's just recap for everybody concerned. RCEP 101. What is it in a nutshell? And particularly for the agriculture sector, what does it cover? What does it not cover?
It covers the entire gamut of agricultural trading in the 15 countries, by the way, who are members of it. It's basically the ASEAN countries plus the big ones like China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea. So it's a big market for products. And it does not only cover agricultural products. It covers the entire gamut of products that are being traded in the world. Yun po yun. So hindi po kasama din yung US, Canada, o European countries. Yun po. At ang fear nga nila ay hindi masyadong fear na natatakot. They're not intimidated dun sa manufacturing side because the study shows that they will be a net beneficiary because some of our manufacturing items, particularly mga chips or something, are really exported. What basically the fear is coming from the agriculture sector because of the fact that they're saying that our agriculture sector is not ready for the competition that will be posed with an open trading regime of these different countries. So it's a smaller version of the WTO kasi regional na to.
But when we talk about, as you said, the entire gamut, I want to run that up against assurances from some government officials and advocates of RCEP specific to agriculture products. They're also saying, you don't have to worry because merong mga bagay na protected dito. Hindi naman covered dito ang rice, hindi naman covered dito ang sibuyas, and so on. Is that accurate? Is there anything that we need to understand about what's protected and what's not protected?
The RCEP talks about reduction of tariffs. And we made sure, our negotiators, when we participated in the RCEP, we made sure that the primary commodities like rice, corn, poultry, sugar, the big ones, coconut, etc., are not included further in the tariff reductions. So whatever is already there under the WTO and under the AFTA CEPT, that's the ASEAN Free Trade Area, we made sure that they are protected. Yun lang, they did not go over and above that. Ang tatamaan dyan, yung certain manufactured food items, the intermediary, but very, very limited. Like as the Secretary of NEDA, Dr. R.C. Balisacan said, only 33 tariff lines in agriculture will be affected and 15 products actually. So napakaliit nung portion ng agriculture na maapektuhan ito in terms of the reduction of tariffs. On the other hand, sorry. So go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, sir, I was reading your column from December 30, 2021 in the Manila Times as well. So I think that's the second part, but I couldn't find the second part. But what I'm getting from your column is basically the opposition to the RCEP, from what you can tell, is based on at least number one is ideology. And number two, false premises. So if we do a bottom line, sir, bottom line natin, in the end, if you add everything up and subtract everything that needs to be subtracted, you're saying that we get a plus as far as joining RCEP is concerned.
Yeah, it's not me that is saying it actually. There was a study already conducted by Dr. Kororotan. He was a former UPSE professor. Now he's with Texas A&M. He showed that we will be a net beneficiary of this new regional economic cooperation. But there is a counter study done by an Indian economist whose name is called Vanga, which is being cited by those who oppose the RCEP, saying that we will be a net loser. The problem is the methodology that they use. mas comprehensive ang methodology that was used by Dr. Cororatan, which is also being used by the Asian Development Bank, which we call technically computable general equilibrium model. It talks about the entire economy, poverty, incidence, welfare, etc. Ang tiniglang lang ni Dr. Banga of India, which he did for UNCTAD, is just look at the impact of the tariff reduction. So maliit yung kanya, partial equilibrium. So in other words, if you look at the study of scholarly people, you will say that based on that, and this is being cited also by the Foundation for Economic Freedom, of which I have to be transparent about it. I'm a fellow, which we cited na we are a net beneficiary. And remember, ganito eh. Agriculture is less than 10% of our gross domestic product. 90% of that are services and industry.
Yes, sir.
So if we don't join that, the 90% of our economy will be threatened. You know, assuming hindi tayo So you mean that we will sacrifice the 90% for the interest, assuming na lang, of the less than 10% of the economy? Parang mali ata yung equation, di ba? Kasi net beneficiaries talaga niyan, manufacturing sector. Because the tariffs will be lowered, etc. And we can use raw materials, for example, in our chips or something like that, that were not made within the ASEAN region or within that RCEP region. We can source in the US and then export it to the different countries as members of the RCEP. Kung hindi tayo members doon, any foreign investors that will come in will say, I will have to think twice because you have a limited export market because you're not part of this RCEP thing. So yun yung dilemma eh. Do you sacrifice the 10% of the 90% to the interest of the 10%? And even when you look at it, even if we don't become part of it, our agricultural export products will be affected. Like yung mga tuna, mackerels, etc., which we are exporting, maapektuhan yon because they will not be part of this most favored nation treatment that will be accorded to our...
Sir Adriana, ang sabi ng opponents kasi, well, yun ang main nila, they are not yet competitive enough at magkakaproblema nga daw sila pagpasok niyang mga flood of imports. Ang tanong ngayon, will we ever be, yung sector na yon, will it ever be competitive, and if it will be, ano kaya yung reasonable timeline na that can be attained?
We can be competitive provided that we put in the necessary conditions. And the foremost necessary conditions, for me, aking opinion, is we need to consolidate or cluster our farms. Because the average, for example, average farm size now is less than a hectare. For corn, it's about 0.54 a hectare. So how can you be competitive? How can you put in the technology if that's the size of farm? Which goes down to the problem of agrarian reform. We need to rethink that as a policy instrument. Kasi pag hindi mo consolidate, how can you apply technology?
Yeah.
How can you apply farm machinery, etc., etc.? Which, by the way, the other countries like China, Vietnam, Thailand, even Indonesia and Malaysia already did. Tayo hindi. Kasi mahal na mahal natin yung agrarian reform program. Because if you go against the agrarian program, you will be accused of being anti-farmer.
So kung itutuloy ang mga reforms, kung ipupush through yung mga reforms na yan, which have been discussed for some time na, ano kaya nga yung reasonable period na pwede na nga siya maging competitive? Mga ilang taon niya nabutin?
Alagay ko, hindi bababa sa 10 years eh. Parang edukasyon yan eh. You will need about 10 years eh to build, to make it competitive because you have to put in the necessary, not only increase productivity, you need to put the necessary post-harvest, marketing, logistics, etc., etc., down the line. Kasi hindi na pwede. Lalo na ngayon, in the age of ICT, you need also to include digital agriculture like satellite, drone. That kind of technology are so important now if you want to be competitive.
In the meantime, sir, other than these technological interventions and inputs and everything else, yung po sa nabanggit nyo, consolidation, agrarian reform, nandyan na. Short of legislation, again, to undo or to fix or to tweak anything in agrarian reform, what are our options for consolidating land and to make it viable for industrializing agriculture, getting investments there? What options do we have short of upending agrarian reform?
It's extremely difficult, but it can be done through, if we allow, assuming that we still have the agrarian reform program, if we'll allow leasehold agreement through a contract growing arrangement. Like, kunyari, parang nakita nyo sa poultry, di ba? May malaki tapos contract growing arrangement with the small one, and then the big one sell it. This is what we call agricultural venture agreement. So if we can have that leasehold agreement, if we loosen a little bit the interpretation of the law about leasehold agreement, then we can consolidate lands. And the primary targets for consolidators are actually using the vehicle of the Irrigators Association. Kasi yung sa irrigation, if you look at it from rice side, there is the natural flow of the river. Di ba? So, yung natural flow of the river, you need some form of cooperation to be able to maintain the adequate supply of water or irrigation to your farms. That could be the basis of organizing the farmers into clusters. Ang problem po natin ngayon, yung wala tayong mga extension worker kasi ang extension worker natin nasa LGUs. You need to convince the LGUs this is the proper way to do. And given the fact that the President is the Agriculture Secretary, he has a better leverage in terms of convincing the LGUs to go through to that direction.
Sir, I think we all agree naman on the need to strengthen yung cooperative system and consolidate yung mga farmlands. But at the same time, it's been we've had several administrations also claiming to be trying to do that, build cooperatives where farmers work together and increase productivity. So in a sense, medyo very ideal yon na kung mangyayari yun. What are the chances that will happen in the near future? And if that does not happen in the near future, how does that affect our numbers as far as joining RCEP is concerned?
Yun nga, kasi nga, in fact, there was an author who said that if you look at the history of cooperativism in the Philippines, or cooperatives in the Philippines, it's practically a history of failure. Because the successful ones are the exception rather than the rule. And siguro, I don't know, siguro it's a parang cultural kind of thing that we have difficulty in what we call in social science, social cohesion, the ability to collectively act to attain a certain common good for the community or society. Hindi tayo katulad ng mga Japan o Korea, may capability sila to collectively act. Mas individualistic tayo eh. So, ang pinakakita talaga sa yung sa cooperativism, yung accountability ng mga officials nila. Because you need to make them accountable. If one of the officials or the officials of the co-op pocketed the money of the co-op and ran away, they should be penalized. Unfortunately, in many of the instances, they are not. Diba? Kasi because of patronage politics, connection to local leaders, and a lot of the cooperatives are based also on parang mga relatives sila. Pagka malaking kanyo, you can form a cooperative something.
Okay.
Because by forming a cooperative, the thinking is that we will be able to access assistance from the government. Kaya nagiging ganon. But ang point doon is the accountability measure is critical. The option actually is to allow the land markets to work. That means allow the selling and buying of agricultural lands, which is actually happening right now. Nako-convert nga sa mga subdivision. But why are we not allowing, for me, for example, if I want to farm, I have the money and have a little capital and I know how to farm agriculture, and somebody there who's an aging farmers want to sell the land, do not want to his sons or daughter to farm anymore because they go to computer or other professions, why not allow them to sell their lands? Sa India kasi, ang in the Indian experience, you can buy land provided that it will be used for agricultural purposes, farming purposes. Kasi may tinatawag tayong economically viable farm size. That means you can earn a decent income. It's obvious that if it's 1 hectare, you cannot earn a decent income. Lalo na kung rice kasi low value. But if you have about 10 hectares of rice land or palay farm, then may laban yan. Kasi you can now put in the necessary technology, drying, milling facilities. In the same fashion, there are already studies showing that if you want an economically viable sugar farm, you need about 50 hectares. And if it's coconut, it has to be 20 hectares. So yun yung mga factors na tinitingnan na dapat. Allow the land market to work. Yun ang ano. But in FEF, our organization, propose debt condonation. Yung mga agrarian reform beneficiaries, wag na sila magbayad ng utang kasi mababa yung yung payment. I-condone niya provided that once they're condoned, we will allow the selling of land up to a certain hindi naman malaking-malaki, 25, 30 hectares or something like that. And if you have 20, 25 hectares, it is much easier for companies, big companies or agribusiness corporations to go into a contract farming and cluster the lands instead of talking to hundreds and hundreds of small farmers, di ba?
Sir, ibalik natin sa RCEP, the big picture. We're talking about the 10% as you said, na really they will be their concern is baka maiwan sila dito and dehado sila. It's no secret our neighbors, Vietnam, Thailand, have really developed their agriculture sectors far ahead. Notwithstanding all of that, what's the best case scenario and what's the worst case scenario?
The best case scenario is that those who are opposing should be able to pinpoint in detail what kind of assistance they want. Hindi yung masyadong general kailangan namin ng competitive measures. What are the assistance that will be needed per sector or what per crop if they think that that will be affected? But as I said, rice, corn, sugar, poultry, pork will not be affected by RCEP. These are the big ones. So the challenge is really for them to come out with a detailed listing of what assistance they need to make those sectors or crops competitive. Kasi masyadong, I just noticed the former Secretary Leonie Montevero was saying, madidihado. Paano madidihado? Saan madidihado? Anong assistance ang kailangan mo? Hindi ba sapat na more than 60 billion of your budget of the Department of Agriculture goes to rice productivity enhancement program?
Sir, let me reframe let me reframe just what you just said. Doon po sa mga agricultural products na included nga doon sa RCEP, and as you said nga kanina, most of the major or prime agricultural products are not included in RCEP. Pero among those that are included in RCEP, saan tayo pinaka-vulnerable or saan pinaka-vulnerable yung sector na yun?
Fruits, something kasi fruit juices is yun. Kasi the Australians will flood us with fruits or something like that. Yung gano'n, yun. Pero but they are minor ones kung magtitingnan mo. That's the reason why I'm also at a loss.
Yeah, but,
ano ba talaga dapat ang gusto nila? Kasi dati, go ahead.
I mean, we understand when you say that they're minor ones. I presume that means that it's a small segment at this point. But isn't that subscribing to it's a cycle, hindi po ba? Di ba? Because people will say, maliit nga kami precisely because we never got the support. Maliit nga kami precisely because there was never a strategic plan that followed to develop high-value crops and to get the support we need. Put yourself, if you could, in their shoes. And you are a high-value farmer. You're into fruits and vegetables and whatever. And what would you say, okay, this is reasonable to ask for? And sa totoo lang, over the decades, talaga namang they could have gotten that kind of support. Other countries provided that support. We never gave that kind of support.
Lalo sa high-value crops na sinasabi mo, they never really, I have to admit, a substantial support because the thinking of the government is that the high-value crops are in the hands of relatively well-off, farmers. So there is no need put a lot of resources. A prime example is that the livestock industry, livestock and poultry. The livestock poultry corn contributes to agricultural GBA, gross value added, before more than 30%. but the budget of that sector is less than 5 billion or 4 billion. Compared to rice, which contributes 22 to 23%, but the budget it gets, it's about half of the budget to the Department of Agriculture. Say at least about 30 to 40 billion. So ganun eh. And the reason for the thinking is that these particular sectors or crops are in the hands of the private sector that can, invest in those activities like poultry or hogs, and therefore there is no need for much government support. Ganon din yung thinking doon sa mga high-value crops like mango, avocado, calamansi, etc. Ine-export naman yan eh. So they can take care of themselves. They can invest in machineries or whatever. Pero mali nga yung thinking na yun eh. Kasi nga, yun yung mga areas where we can achieve rapid growth. And the main problem that they encounter, itong mga ano na to, of course, is really the bulk, yung kahit na lang sa research na lang, yung varietal improvement. Kasi per commodity, it's about 1.5 billion. There are about 13 commodities under the high-value crops, so the Department of Agriculture. So about 100 million lang ang nabibigay na yearly na suporta. Like yung sa onion, kaya classic case yan. Pero meron bang ginawang research? Meron bang nilagay na cold storage facilities? Yun ang palagi sinasabi ngayon, di ba? Kasi yung problema natin, pag nagka-crisis, doon lang tayong umaakto. Then we realize, we are always geniuses in hindsight. Di ba? Palaging ganun eh. Kasi nga, wala nag-iisip ng talagang long-term na eto, ganito, something. Tama ka doon. At tingin ko, yung R&D is so critical. For example, high-value crops, moringa. Ano ba yung moringa? Yung balunggay. Di ba? Ini-export natin yan. Ang laki ng demand yan. Sinasabi ko nga doon sa research, pati hindi tayo gumagawa ng research dyan. In terms of processing, in terms of medicinal value, etc. Oil, virgin coconut oil, yung gano'n. Why are we not putting our focus in terms of improving like what, Malaysia did for palm oil or rubber? Why are we not? Kasi nasa kamay daw nga ng private sector. Okay. Kita mo sa Thailand, makikita mo ang gaganda ng mga prutas nila. Diba? Kasi that is a product of research, varietal improvement research. Doon lang malaking bagay na yan na makakatulong tayo. And secondly, na area na dapat is really the processing, improving the processing facilities and the packaging. Diba tayo, notorious tayo diyan. Pagka makikita mo, pangit ang packaging, sasabihin na lang natin, Pilipinas, galing sa Pilipinas yan. Okay. We need research there, packaging, or and the processing like coconut water. Anong nilagay natin na research sa improvement ng preservation ng coconut water and how to package properly so that its shelf life will be prolonged? Meron ka ba narinig? Parang wala, no? Diba?
Kaya hindi nabibigyan sila ng pansin.
Pero yun nga yung may comparative advantage tayo sa economic eh. Doon kikita lang mas malaki yung magsasaka. I'll tell you an example. I went to Bicol. We're the only ones producing pili in the world. Ano niya yung macadamia nuts, di ba? Anong problema? Wala. Sabi sa akin ng pili house doon, I forgot the measurement, but 5,000 daw ginaano sa kanila, pero may supply lang nila is 1,000. So there is a huge gap in terms of demand. But, one of the highest returns that you can get in terms of investment are in pineapple, in banana, in pili nuts, in all of those things, in calamansi. Now we're exporting calamansi, no? But why are we not improving the productivity and the variety and the quality? Yun na nga eh. Kasi we're so focused on rice that we think that ito importante. But if we can sell a lot of pili and our farmers can earn 10 times what they earn from rice, I think we can easily buy rice from Vietnam.
Sige
if
po.
we want to.
Okay. Well,
Ganon, diba?
Mr. Adriano, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but certainly you've opened up a lot of further topics that I'm sure we will need to discuss in future episodes. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, sir.
Robbie, thank you. Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Ami, for having me. Magandang gabi sa inyo lahat.
Magandang gabi po. Fermin Adriano, former Agriculture Undersecretary. And we will start up another conversation after this break. Keep it here on One News.
The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA, confirms that there are informants who offered to conduct raids in exchange for 30% of the drugs confiscated in the operation.
Ang sistema, sir, I do not have to spend anything. They will do all the work, but they are asking 30% of the actual seizures as their payment. Until this moment, I tell our agents in PDEA, if there are offers for operations to be launched or initiated, we will only give them the monetary value of their actions.
Lawmakers in the lower house raised concerns over the preferred reward system for informants of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. Speaking to The Big Story, Barber said he believes that the reward system should not be removed and should instead be improved by raising monetary reward for informants.
Information coming from assets or informers have produced quite a significant achievement by the PDEA and the Philippine National Police. And dapat nga siguro i-improve pa natin yung reward, no? Kasi that will entice all these informers to provide information that will cause the arrest, apprehension of the drug syndicates and its members.
Tipsters or assets at the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA, were allegedly paid with drugs in the past. Is this in fact happening? Is this still happening? And what's going on with the government's anti-drugs campaign? Let's talk to Dangerous Drugs Board Chairman Catalino Cuy. Good evening, sir. Welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, sa Robbie. Good evening, Ami and Ed. Good evening sa inyong tatlo at sa lahat ng mga sumusubaybay sa program nyo, The Chief.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening po. And let's start po doon sa napanood na ng mga tao. Talagang nagulat yung mga tao dito. But let's start with a basic understanding. The reward system in place with regards to dealing with assets And at the same time, totoo po ba that as part of the reward system, mismong portion ng haul ng kontrabando ang ibinabayad?
That's what I heard dun sa hearing sa lower house the other day, according to Director General Moro Lasso ng PIDEA. At nabanggit na rin niya sa akin yan, I think last week. Nagulat nga rin siya at sabi ko, ngayon ko lang narinig yan. 30% according to him, 70% lang kumbaga yung i-declare nila as yung mga apprehension. The 30% will be left to the informer as his parang reward. Hindi dapat ganoon. Yung ating reward system for covered yan ng covered yan ng board regulation at kasama provided din yan doon sa Section 22 ng ating Article 2 ng ating Republic Act 9165 na nagpo-provide ng reward for yan nga yung mga individuals, mga asset, mga informer, and also doon sa ating mga law enforcer, mga operator na involved doon sa operation. Meron din meron corresponding reward din yan. Yung para sa mga individual informer, ang tawag doon Operation Private Eye. And it was covered by a board regulation as early as 2003.
Yes, sir.
2003 meron na yan. Itong yung reward system naman for the involved law enforcer, yung mga nag-conduct ng operation, na successful operation, covered naman yan ng board regulation din. Board Regulation number 1, series of 2016.
Sir, we'll get into the reward system. We have a lot of questions about it, but there's something I just want to wrap my head around. For an asset to say, kung ako sabihin ko, sige, tutulong ako or i-raid ko na, ako nang bahala, basta 30% ng haul sa akin. Then I'm also thinking I can monetize that, di ba? That essentially means I have the confidence that I can move these goods, this contraband, and I can make money out of that, di ba?
Yeah, he has to convert it by selling it. So parang re-recycle na yan. And mali yun, parang na rin yun, parang another hindi mo rin tinanggal yung droga sa market nabawasan mo nga lang siguro ng 70%, pero may 30% pa. But hindi, that's not legal, bawal yun. Kaya nga, yung nabanggit nga ni Congressman Barbers, yung chairman ng drugs sa lower house, look into the yung reward. Baka maliit kasi may maximum, may ceiling kasi yung pwedeng ibigay sa individual mga thieves na rin. 2 million yata, ganyan.
2 million.
2 million. Kung 30% of certain amount yan, baka alam niya na mas malaki yung makukuha niya in case na maibenta niya yun. Di ba?
10 billion said, that's 3 billion already. Sir, pero sir, sir, if I may, sir, kasi as of last night, kasi medyo confused kami doon sa talaga sinabi ni Director Lasso. Ang sinabi ba niya kagabi sa hearing ay yun lamang ang hinihingi o hinihiling noong informant, o ang sinabi ba niya ay yun ang hinihiling at yun ang binibigay dati ng PIDEA? What we're getting from you po, at least sa sagot nyo kanina, parang umamin si Director General sa inyo na parang kalakaran talaga dati. Tama ho ba? Kalakaran talaga dati.
Hindi, it was, nalaman niya yan nung nag-assume na siya sa PIDEA. Apparently, may lumapit yatang informer sa kanila at yun yung parang arrangement na gusto. But he's not sure whether it's being done before. Kako, tutukan mo mabuti yan at imbestigahan mo kasi malaking issue yan. Ibig sabihin, yan yung yan nga yung sinasabi palagi na yung recycling
Yes, sir.
Pag during operation kasi, once na ma-evaluate na yan o
inventory.
Ma-retrieve na at mailagay na yan sa safekeeping ng PIDEA or PNP, intact na yan hindi na yan yung kinukuhanan, hindi na yung kinukupitan na inire-recycle. most probably ang nare-recycle yung talagang antimano na itago na hindi na isinama sa inventory.
Yes, sir. Sir, sir, kasi as early as 2019, in a hearing doon sa Senado, umamin si dating DG Aaron Aquino na at least half of the drugs that they seized lamang ang sinusurrender ng kanilang mga ahente. He said this in a public hearing on the PDEA's budget. Ito pang ang quote this is from Aaron Aquino, sir. When they seize drugs, maybe half of those will be surrendered o yun lang ang ipapalabas na yun lang ang na-seize nila. The other ones are being kept either for future operations or the worst of it, they sell the drugs. Kalahati. So going by this, parang mas naging parang mas kinonsensya pa ngayon ng 30% na lang hindi na kalahati.
So apparently meron na silang mga information about those transactions before. So yun nga, siguro it's a challenge para sa both PDEA and PNP na to look over yung ganyang mga operation, for the commanders to see to it na hindi mangyari yan, kasi meron naman tayong corresponding reward system para sa ganyan, both sa tipster at saka sa ating mga operator, although admittedly mas maliit kung yung proceeds kung yung market price nung may iwang droga sa kanila kung sakali.
Pero sa recycling yan, di ba? Sabi ng PNP kanina, nagde-deny sila, hindi daw nila ginagawa. Kasi kahit ibalik mo doon sa informante, kung ako informante, I will not keep drugs in my possession. Baka mamayang gabi lang patay na ako di ba?
Yeah, exactly.
Ebidensya sa'yo, why will I keep it? Di ba? I-turn over mo yan doon sa kung sino man ang nanghuli sa'yo, manghihingi ka na lang ng reward. So medyo malabo na. Yung nagre-recycle niyan, yung nanghuli. Di ba?
Yeah, most probably ganun ang mangyayari dyan.
Kasi whatever you say, kung suspect pwede kang patayin in a couple of hours Di ba? Ang laban ka lang di lalo na ganun karaming drugs. Anyway, yan ang sinabi ng PNP, di daw nila ginagawa yon. Di sila nagaganon na reward. Pero ang tanong ngayon, anong mga bagong measures, if there are any new measures that you are implementing, the government is implementing to discourage yung recycling yung mga marami pa rin mga rogue elements sa both sa in law enforcement, sabihin na lang natin. Ano yung pwedeng gawin? Dati sinabi, lagyan daw ng camera yung storage room. Kung hindi umaabot sa storage room.
Hindi nga. Hindi, ang nabanggit nga natin, once na may inventory yung mga substances na yan, hindi yan ang nagagalaw Most probably nga yung nai-report na nare-recycle, ito yung naitago na kaagad. Immediately during operation, hindi na isinama yung antimano sa inventory. Kasi pag na-inventory na yan, inilagay na yan sa storage ng PDEA at PNP, secure na yan dun well guarded na yan dun Hindi na para kuhanan pa yan kukupitan pa yan doon. Ito yung mga hindi sinama sa inventory. So isa yan sa ang isa sa mga activity ngayon ng both PNP and PDEA is of course yung internal cleansing. Kasi talagang nasa individual, nasa operator yan And siguro isa sa mga measure also yung body camera, use of body camera. At
matagal na yun, di ba? Matagal na sinasabi yan. Ito na yung project na yun. Yung body
joint
camera.
Operation. Joint operation ang isa sa mga na may two units na both PDEA and PNP para may parang check and balance para just to be sure na they follow the procedure.
Pero sir, the fact is that the informant approached the Director General himself of the PDEA to make this pitch na akin yung 1/3, sa inyo yung 70%. I mean, medyo brazen yun. And I suppose that also gives us an idea kung gaano ka katalamak o gaano ka acceptable dun sa some elements or many elements sa PDEA yung gawain. Kasi nga, Imagine yung PDEA DG mismo ang inalok ng ganun. That's not something you do if you're not confident.
I'm not sure kung si DG Lasso mismo
But sir, sabi niya sa hearing eh.
naman?
Kausap daw niya. Iliwanag pa sa kanya, ang terminology nila trabaho. Kami yung katrabaho, all in na kami, pero we keep 30%. That was the offer to him.
Yeah. So very brave.
So well, what it boils down to, sir, is ano? So what do we do about it in the medium and short term? Di ba? You talked about body cameras and all that, pero di ba? I suppose people are looking for something tangible and something concrete that they can pin on. Kasi it's such a glaring ano eh. It's such a glaring incident eh.
Kaya tayo nagkaroon ng tukang.
For PDEA, they will have to review yung mga recent operation nila, and maybe it will be heart-to-heart talk between the commander at saka yung mga personnel niya. So ano yan eh, yung internal cleansing is really a serious matter. Just recently, nagkaroon nga ng involvement both sa PNP, sa PDEA. Recently, merong mga personnel sila na nahuli actively involved in illegal drugs transactions.
Mr. Cuy, if we could zoom out even further on the anti-drugs campaign in general, President Marcos has acknowledged that, among other things, he said we will need to refocus. He said we need to learn from the hard lessons from the previous administration as well. I want to zoom in on one basic thing, our baseline numbers from which we will measure success. As you know, the DDB survey conducted in 2015 to 2016, there was said the baseline numbers we have is 1.8 million.
1.8 million.
1.8 million. President Duterte insisted on a different number. In fact, that got your predecessor fired, Mr. Reyes, for insisting. And Mr. Duterte said, no, let's count everybody who ever tried once in their life, counted yan sa numbers. That inflated the numbers to 4 million from a baseline of 1.8 million. So basic question lang po, under the DDB, under the Marcos administration, what's our baseline number? Where do we proceed? Are you adopting the number of President Duterte, where he left it at 4 million drug users in the Philippines? Or do we go back to what the DDB actually surveyed at around 1.8, about 2 million?
Yung 1.8 million na yan yung lumabas doon sa 2015 survey na ginawa ng DDB. Noong 2019, we conducted another survey. Actually, 2020 natapos yun eh. The collection of data was done from December 2019. Natapos to ng February of 2020, just before the COVID. Lumabas yung report, October 2020. So we call it DDB survey for 2020. So doon sa survey na yun, lumabas na during that time, as of February of 2020, there were 1.4 million current user. So 1.4 million current user yun. And more than I think 3 million yata na lifetime user naman. Meaning, ito yung gumamit ng drugs once upon a time, but not necessarily current. Yung current is 1.4 as of February 2020. So, may discrepancy yan. Kasi doon sa, what we're saying, doon sa 2015 survey kasi, hindi nila consider yung, doon sa mga questionnaire, hindi nila consider yung mga parang evasive na answer. So, kausap nga namin yung gumawa ng survey na yon, kinusap namin sila kung how they did it. Wala sila nung tinatawag na proxy indicator na affirmative at saka negative answer lang yung kinonsider nila. In the 2020 survey, isinama natin yung lapses na ginawa during the 2015. So meron na tayong proxy indicator. Kung evasive man yung sagot ng respondent, makikita doon sa answer niya sa ibang questionnaire kung nagsasabi siya ng totoo at hindi. And we conducted by region. So lahat ng region sinama natin, unlike no sa 2015 na hindi kasama yung 3 region. So parang hindi accurate. And sinabi rin nung nag-survey ng 2015 na marami sa mga respondent hesitant talaga sumagot. So dito sa 2020 survey, mas marami yung ating respondent, almost 9,000. At yun nga, doon sa 1.4 na current user, that was 2020, marami ng ibig sabihin, kung i-base natin yan sa 2016, sinimula nung administration ng President Duterte, malaking bawas yon, malaking bawas. So yung we believe na, and we feel, ako personally, I believe na yung 1.8 na result noon sa 2015 survey, maliit yon, hindi accurate yon. Now we will be conducting another survey itong year na to. Nagsimula na yung preparation. We will be starting yung data collection by next month, and siguro by third quarter mailabas natin yung result at i-compare natin yan doon sa baseline. Yung 2019-2020 survey yung magiging baseline natin. Kasi
but
ito yung
just to make it clear po, I mean, and we do look forward to those numbers, and mukhang, we're starting to get back to apples comparison to 2015, notwithstanding the adjustments. But what will bring it down is more important than the number is our definition of what's the number we're looking at, di ba? So, ayun nga, President Duterte insisted on 4 million. That was his way of framing na may crisis tayo and we're becoming a narco state and so on. So, more important than the numbers, the definition, are we saying that for an apples-to-apples comparison, we're going back to measuring current users, we are no longer adding everybody who ever tried even once?
Yeah. Ano lang naman yun, yung sinasabi nating lifetime user, just for our information yun. What is more important is yung current user, para malaman natin by region at i-compare natin yan doon sa data ng PNP at saka PIDEA kung nagmamatch yan. Kasi ang data kasi itong survey, opinionated ito unlike yung data na hinahawakan ng PNP at PIDEA, ito yung actual apprehension at actual confiscation and arrest based doon sa mga yan yung data ang hawak nila. So tinitingnan natin yan.
Okay.
At it will be very useful also not only sa law enforcer but also sa Department of Health, sa DSWD at saka yung mga local government units kung alin yung tututukan nilang mga area. At yan din yung yan din yung aming magiging yung result ng survey na yan, ang basis din namin doon sa support na ibinibigay natin sa mga local government units para sa kanilang anti-illegal drug campaign.
Okay.
Mr. Kuy, habol ko lang, isang lang. Meron pang isang controversy sa drugs ngayon. May position ba DDB sa delisting ng marijuana from the prohibited drug list?
Kapag dinelist mo yung marijuana, that is good as legalizing it.
Yes. Oo nga, may position ko.
Hindi, ngayon merong ongoing yung ongoing yung deliberation natin sa Senate at saka sa House. Ang ang malaking tumututol diyan are the health practitioner. During the nakatatlong hearing na kami sa Senate chaired by si Senator Padilla. Ang magandang makinig doon ang nagtatalo noon, ang nagdedebate doon parehong mga doctors groups of doctors They are the more concerned dito. And kami naman sa board kasi board nga kami. We are of course we defer, we listen to the recommendation kung ano yung sinasabi ng mga doktor ng Department of Health, ng Philippine Medical Association, ng ISUC, etc. Kasi sila yung expert diyan. Yung sa amin law enforcement siguro idadagdag pa natin yun doon sa kanilang mga recommendation and comment. During the third, I think during the fourth Senate hearing, medyo panalo. Yun ang impression ko, medyo panalo yung anti Kasi yun nga sinasabi ng mga doktor, mga expert, meron namang ibang gamot na available. Kasi ang bottom line ng mga pro-cannabis, manufacturing dito. ang contention ng isang expert dyan sa gamot, sa manufacturing, sa pharmacy, ang bottom line is business. Yung market, meron ba magtatayo ng ganong laboratory dito na gagawa nun?
Marami.
For a rare disease yan mga ganon Iba siyempre yung kung i-allot mo yan for recreational use, maraming gagamit yan. But right now, ang ating existing 9165 na batas allows for a compassionate use. We also allow yung use of cannabis for research. Yung sa medical, kasi gusto nilang i-consider medical yung mga oil yung mga pahit-pahit Hindi pa considered yun. Kasi pwede rin gamitin sa vape yan
Apa. Well, Chairman Cuy, unfortunately, naubusan po tayo ng oras, but siguro naman po, okay lang po sa inyo, maimbitahan namin kayo. We'll tackle this topic in particular.
Yes, tawag lang.
Sige pa. Si Catalino Cuy po, Chairperson ng Dangerous Drugs Board. And that is the Wednesday edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed will keep the conversation going. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Ed Ligao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.